Hey everybody, welcome to my RV7 / Pete and Pole Air Camper YouTube channel. I've been trying to make this intro video now for probably a half hour, and I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet and to the point. The reason I'm making these videos is because one, I like to build, and two, I really enjoy helping other people. So these videos will show you how I am building my airplane. Now, I'm not saying that I'm an expert, because I'm not, and I'm not saying that the way that I've built my airplane is the way that you should build yours. These are just for entertainment purposes. Maybe when you watch these, it will spark some ideas in your own mind on ways that you want to build your airplane. The other reason I'm making these videos is because I need help building my RV7. I can build the airplane myself. Financially, it would take a very long time to do it. I would rather not wait a very long time, because I want to use this airplane as a platform to travel around the country and help other people with their aircraft projects or with their aircraft maintenance. So in order for me to do that, I've set up a GoFundMe page and an Amazon wish list, and those links will be in the description of all of these RV videos. So if you feel moved enough when you watch these videos, if they've helped you and you feel motivated in return to help me, I'd appreciate your donation or your purchases from the wish list. So that's it. That's the mission of the airplane. Like I said, I'd like to use it as a platform to travel to people. They can reach out to me and say, hey, I'm building an RV whatever, I'm building a Pete and Pole air camper, I'm building a Stoll type airplane, I have a certified airplane that I need some help with, whatever it is. I would like to be able to fly to their shop, to their hangar, and be with them real time, hands on, and try to help them as best I can. I might not be able to help. Maybe I show up and the only thing that I can do is help you move a wing from one side of the shop to the other. I'm okay with that. So that's the idea. And as a little thank you, as little as it is, this is an RV7 elevator skin, and if you make a donation or you purchase something from my wish list, I'd like to add your name to this skin, and ultimately, hopefully, I'll have it full of names, and those names and the skin will be mounted at my hangar, what I call Wall of Honor, just as a little recognition that these people were nice enough to help me with my project. So that's it. Again, these are the RV7 videos. You might be interested in checking out my Pete and Pole Air Camper videos as well. But that's it. All right, that's enough yip yap for now. I say we get to building some RVs. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm going to talk a little bit about the RV7 spar. This spar comes pretty much as you see it here, minus the nut plates that are attached and all of these countersunk holes. The holes are here, but the countersinking is the joy that you guys get to do. We'll talk about that a little bit later. This is the spar, comes gold anodized. It actually comes in 3 pieces. You've got these heavy aluminum pieces here. You've got the actual web of the spar here, and this piece actually comes all the way over and then gets bent into the flanges here. And then you've got this reinforcement piece here, which runs almost the entire length of the spar. So with those 3 pieces being stacked on top of one another, you have a lot of areas, such as in here, these areas in here. I don't know, this is not going to probably stay in focus, but down in here, between these 2 pieces, and then down in areas like this here. When you do all this countersinking, all these metal shavings are going to find their way into areas like this, and potentially, up underneath here, wedged down in here. So what I like to do, I use blue painter's tape, and I'll just tape over all these areas to keep those chips out. It's a little bit tedious, but it's the right thing to do, because if you get anything down, wedged down in these areas, you're never going to get it out. Some of those chips are going to be really tiny. They're going to wedge down in here, and they'll be there probably for the life of the airplane. Is that an issue? I don't know, but it did not appeal to me, so I used the blue painter's tape and taped off everything. I believe I have some photographs of that, and I'll try to include that in this video. So that's where I started. After I inspected the spar, verified that it was okay, that it wasn't damaged in any way during the shipping process, then I went ahead and did the tape to tape off all the areas that the shavings could probably find their way into. Next step then was the countersinking of the holes. Let me stand this up and see if I have to hold on to this because it will fall back over. So the first thing I want to note is that I have some markings on the spar, and that's nothing more than to keep me oriented as to that this is in fact the spar for the right wing, and that I have it labeled that this is the top of the spar, and then the arrows just remind me of which way is forward. So this is forward, this is the top, so this is the right wing, because if you were sitting in the cockpit here, this would be off to your right, and this would be facing forward. Because obviously you don't want to build the wing upside down, or if you don't want to build two lefts or two rights. The other thing that I had done, well, let me lay this back down. So your ribs come off of here vertically, they go up this way, and they rivet ultimately in place through here, these different places here. When you look at the plans, the rivets, or the ribs, excuse me, the ribs are slightly different, and the flanges of each rib can face two different directions. They're not all identical. That will make more sense to you when you read the instructions and look at the plans. But basically, you want to make sure that once you have the ribs in place along the spar, verify that with the plans that you have the correct rib in the correct place. And since you have to assemble it and disassemble it multiple times, I just went ahead and marked. I just started here at the root and marked, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down. I marked all the rib locations, and then I marked on the rib itself the matching 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I get the right rib back in its right location on the spar. All right, so countersunk holes. Might not be able to tell in this video, but these two countersinks are actually two different sizes. And then of course you've got the big ones here. The reason these are two different sizes is this. A rib goes into here on this back side. This hole gets a skin over top of it. This particular hole does not. This just gets a rivet. So when your skin comes in here, this gets riveted right away to hold that in place. This rivet gets put on later after the external skin is put on. So this rivet has to hold a skin dimple. This holds a skin dimple, so it's slightly larger in diameter. This one just holds the flush rivet head. All right, now I'm going to go over here and show you that on my other wing, and hopefully this will stay somewhat in focus. So here's that same area. All right, so you can see here's the rivet in place and it's flush. That rivet just holds the rib. This rivet will ultimately have the wing skin that will come down and lay over top of it. So this dimple will hold the skin, which will get riveted. This rivet gets put in place now and is flush. The reason that is when you put the fuel tank on, the fuel tank skin, here's another rib, comes down, there's the hole left open for the skin. And then there's another rivet underneath here, which is just like this, but obviously it gets covered up with the fuel tank skin. And that happens for all of the ribs going down where the, well actually it's not all of them, I think it's the first 5 or 6 ribs. But it will make sense when you actually have your spar and you start putting your ribs in place. You'll see where you need to make sure you mark these individual rivets so that you don't forget to run that rivet in there flush before you put the fuel tank skin on. Alright, I hope that showed up and I hope that makes sense. And that happens on both the top and the bottom of the spar. So here's the top of the spar. I'm trying to hold this and work the camera. So I mark those individual countersunk holes. I just circled them so I know that this one is smaller just for a rivet head. This one, this one, this one, and this one. I think that's it. Like I said, that will make more sense when you look at the when you have your actual spar and the ribs and you look at the plans. So this is the bottom of the spar, and I did the same thing. You've got the same type of situation on the bottom where you have these particular countersinks that have to be slightly smaller only for a flush rivet head, and you want to make sure you get those riveted before you put your fuel tank skin on. Alright, I believe that's about it for the spar for now, and we will continue on. Something that I forgot to mention, these other countersinks, these are of course the large countersinks for the fuel tank skin. These have the nut plates on the back side because the fuel tank is removable. So these holes are quite large for the screws to go through and then into the nut plate. There aren't any hard etched in stone numbers for the diameter of these different size countersinks. There are some numbers floating around that people use as a guide, but that's pretty much what they are, just as a guide. They're a good starting point, I guess. I would recommend these countersunk screw holes or rivet holes are for the skin. So just take a scrap piece of aluminum the same thickness as the wing skin, dimple it, and then start with a shallow countersink, test fit that dimple into here, and then adjust your microstop as needed, and just keep working it down until that dimple in that scrap piece will lay in here nicely. If this gets too deep and too big, when you lay that dimple down in here, it will kind of move around and float. You don't want that. It's actually best to go a little bit smaller because when you drive, wow, I can't think straight today. When you buck that rivet in here, it's really going to squeeze it down. You're not going to be able to squeeze that scrap piece of aluminum tight enough by hand to duplicate how it's going to be held when it's actually riveted. So if you go a little bit smaller, you'll be better off. Same thing with these big ones. These big ones will nest with the large dimple in the fuel tank skin. So you want to do the same thing. Get a scrap piece of aluminum the same thickness as the fuel tank skin, dimple it, and then test fit the dimple into these holes as you work it down with the countersink. The other thing that I'll talk about later, because I don't have any video of it, especially with these countersinks, if you just use your drill, your microstop, when you start to do these really deep countersinks, these holes will open up and get quite large. and the pilot for the countersink will start to roam around in there freely and chatter and make a mess. So you want to have something, a backer behind here, that in effect makes this flange thicker, so that your pilot on your microstop will have a deep enough hole that it will stay in that hole, and when you're actually countersinking, it won't roll around and chatter and make a mess of things. And like I said, I've got pictures, and I'll narrate that a little bit later on and explain that in detail. All right. My point was that since these are not, you don't have any hard numbers for any of these, through trial and error, you go ahead and figure out what diameter you need to get these to your skin dimples to lay correctly. Once you have that, just as a ballpark, what I did, I took a digital caliper, and then I just measured as best I could. I put on some really thick magnifying glasses and really got down in here and measured the diameter of each of these different countersinks. Of course, these are all the same, and then these are all the same. So you measure one of these that you're happy with, measure one of these that you're happy with, and just write it down. Just make a note. I've got notes. Matter of fact, here are some of my notes here. It's my magnifying glasses, some other mess. These are just different notes, but anyway, I just write down, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but for a number 8 screw for the fuel tank, the diameter for my countersink is between 0.365 and 0.375. Just things like that. Because you're going to have to do it all again. Once you get that microstop set for these, you want to make note of what that diameter is, because when you go to do the other wing, you'll have to do it again, and then you just go to your cheat sheet and say, oh yeah, this diameter for these particular rivets need to be, point whatever inches. And then again, you just start shallow, you do your countersink and then measure it, deepen it, adjust it so it goes deeper, countersink a little bit more, measure it until you get to that number that you have written down. And then all of these holes on both wings, on the top and the bottom, will all be the same. All right, let's move on to something else. Hey everybody, it's me again. I just wanted to say thanks for checking out my video. And like I said in the intro, if you find these videos helpful and useful and you're moved enough to want to, in return, help me with my project, my GoFundMe link and my Amazon wish list link is in the description of each of these videos. And again, if you do make a donation or a purchase, I'll add your name to this elevator skin, and it will be displayed on my wall of honor at my hangar. So that's it. Thanks for coming by. I really do appreciate the donations, and hopefully when this aircraft is finished, we can meet in person, and I will be able to help you or anybody else who needs help with their project, and we'll see what happens. All right, thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.